Tonight on CFTK-TV News, a fisherman is missing in the Skeena River. The historic Old Skeena Bridge celebrates 100 years, and United Way BC updates their sector activation guide.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Monday, July 14th, 2025. I'm Jaylene Matthews. Search efforts are underway in Terrace to find a man who families say went into the Skeena River near Usk Saturday evening. The Terrace RCMP say Thomas Kelly was last seen on Saturday at approximately 6:45 p.m. fishing with family members along the river in Usk. Kelly was reported to have been in the water for several minutes when family lost sight of him. He was last seen wearing a light blue sweater and gray sweatpants. RCMP say they were contacted at the time of the incident, and they say Terrace and Kitimat Search and Rescue were also engaged immediately. Police say efforts to locate Thomas began on Saturday evening on foot, by boat, as well as helicopter. However, he has not been found yet. RCMP say they continue to investigate. It was a day of pride and excitement in Terrace this past Friday as the community came together to celebrate a century of history, marking 100 years since the opening of the Skeena Bridge. Here's CFTK-TV's Helena Asante with more.
Despite the rain, around 60 residents came out to share in the milestone moment of the bridge's 100th anniversary, with vintage cars adding to the occasion. Though the official parade had wrapped up, we caught up with the celebration that followed. The stories were just as rich. The presence of some government officials added a sense of pride and significance to the celebration. From stories told to history relived, the 100th anniversary of Skeena Old Bridge offered more than a celebration, but also a moment of reflection on a great history and years of connecting people for generations.
My husband's grandfather came into Terrace in 1907, so he was around when the bridge was built. The big thing about the bridge is that it has, for 100 years, it has been connecting community. Terrace to Thornhill, Kittilas to Kitsimkalem, and all those other communities beyond. And it's a very important bridge, or it always has been.
Great support from Ministry of Transportation and Transit. They had to close the bridge. We had Emil Anderson staff that actually did the work on the ground. So I appreciate the support for that part of it, because it's in their domain. And so we're happy.
We had refreshments. The Salvation Army food van was here to have coffee and tea, and the Save On Foods donated a cake, complete with a picture of the bridge on top of the cake, and plus 100 cupcakes to serve everyone that had come. And so we are very thankful to the community support that was given.
Daryl shares a beautiful history on his 1964 Chevy, which was restored by a number of people in 2010.
My truck is a 1964 Chev, and it was restored in 2010 by several people. I can't take credit for all of it by any means. Back in 2010, and it's been restored quite a while now, but it still goes really well. I can go down the road as fast as I want, or slow.
It may have been a century-old bridge, but the celebration was full of life. Helena Asante, CFTK-TV News.
A new release from nonprofit United Way BC is now available. CFTK-TV's Kale Maslin has more information.
With the province currently being in the midst of another wildfire season, United Way BC decided that it would be a good time for them to release their updated social sector activation guide for host communities. And in a recent interview, United Way's Director of Community Impact and Investment, Christy Rintoul, gave a bit of a summary on what makes up that guide.
It's a really straightforward, free tool for communities to use in case of a large-scale evacuation or a small-scale emergency wherein folks with extra vulnerabilities may need some support. So I guess to simplify, really it's a framework on how to pull together the social sector to support ESS and emergency services when there's evacuations.
The guide's initial creation came in response to the major atmospheric river flooding that took place back in 2021. But in the years since the guide was made, United Way BC has figured some ways to improve it after making some observations of people who seem to need extra support during these kinds of emergencies.
What we learned through that is that there's a lot of local charities who have the expertise to support those folks in those emergencies, but asking what those needs are when the crisis occurs is too late. We need to figure out a way to mobilize those people, organize those charities, ensure we understand the capacity before the event. So what this guide does, and what we created, was a guide to support communities like Terrace, to bring together all those local partners, local champions. We all know who they are, the charities who step in, those, the clubs and the volunteers who step in during emergencies. Organize those folks before an event. And then when the event takes place, the emergency services have a really clear understanding of who to call and what they can offer to support to fill any needs or gaps that they're seeing.
The guide isn't solely restricted to these large-scale emergencies either, as it also gives advice on how communities can assist with smaller-scale emergencies.
This guide could be utilized if there was, say, an apartment fire and 20 people were displaced. Chances are those 20 folks are going to need more than just a safe place to go that night. They may have extenuating needs that the social sector, the charities in the community, can support. So having this guide and these templates filled out before something like that happens enables the ESS or emergency management folks a one-stop shop to be able to figure out who's who do I need to call to make sure this senior gets the supports they need, this young mother gets the supports they need, this person with extra vulnerabilities gets the supports they need that already exist in the communities that they live.
People seeking to take a look at the guide for themselves can find it on United Way BC's website. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin.
Coming up next, community rallies for Charlie Pollock. A sad update now in the case of the young girl with Batten's disease, whose life-maintaining medication funding has been rescinded by the province. Here's CTV's Brendan Strain.
Oh God, I just feel like we're under this ticking time bomb.
All hope for Jory Fales has been crushed.
How can I look my daughter in the eyes and tell her that we failed her? The system failed her.
The EDRD expert committees have not revised their recommendation to discontinue coverage, given that there is no evidence based on the CDA's clinical criteria that it would provide further benefits for Charlie.
Meaning an appeal made by Charlie's family, as well as professionals in the Batten disease community 1 week ago to the Minister of Health, have fallen on deaf ears. And Charlie has now officially been defunded from her Bernera treatments by the province for good.
I'm just so sad that this is part of her story. It's not fair.
The group advocating for Charlie in Friday's meeting brought forward names of 2 professionals in the field. They say they were not consulted during Charlie's initial review.
The ministry can confirm that the CDA reviewed and evaluated 8 separate publications by these 2 experts.
I know that the 2 experts, the 2 international experts, didn't receive a phone call this week. They'd been waiting to hear from the ministry.
Andrew McFadden was in that meeting and says that published data the province used is now outdated. He says what the province should have done and was offered to them was to speak to those professionals to find out new, unpublished information on the benefits of Bernera. The province never acted on it.
As a community, this is something we can do for her.
Since Osborne's announcement this morning, another groundswell of support for Charlie. Today, local pizza on Douglas Street in Victoria is donating half of its profits to Charlie, which inspired some of its staff to donate their wages as well. Yesterday, this from the West Shore Economic Development Committee.
We raised just under $70,000.
To be put towards 2 infusion treatments for Charlie. Questions came up that if the drug was purchased privately, would the province allow her medical team to administer the drug? That was answered today by the health minister.
They do have that ability, and it is my understanding that Island Health is in dialogue with the family to enable this to happen, if that's what they decide to do.
I think this was about money, and I don't think they did their due diligence.
The family doesn't know what's next for Charlie, but Jory fears the worst.
I don't know how we move on from this. Sorry.
Brendan Strain, CTV News, Langford.
The BC Wildfire Service says rain is anticipated in the southeast corner of BC today, while a so-called outflow weather pattern is expected over coastal regions. The service warns that pattern could increase fire behavior in the region, where 9 blazes are currently burning. There are 70 active fires burning across the province, with about 15 of them being out of control. Let's take a look at your Northwest weather report. Tonight on the North Coast, expect conditions to be slightly cloudy, with fog patches developing overnight. Winds from the northwest at 20 kilometers an hour, becoming light this evening, a low of 12 degrees. Over the next few days on the North Coast, expect the clouds to clear out a bit and a mix of sun and clouds until Thursday. More clouds coming in and a chance of showers on Friday. Daily highs between 14 and 18 degrees, overnight lows between 11 and 13 degrees. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect a few clouds with fog patches dissipating in the morning, a low of 14 degrees. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect the next few days to be nice and warm at 26-27 degrees, then a little cooler between 20 and 23 degrees towards the end of the week, overnight lows between 11 and 14 degrees. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, it's looking clear with a low of 6 degrees, except +3 in low-lying areas, a risk of frost. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect the sun to stick around for the next couple days before some clouds come in on Thursday. Daily highs between 21 and 25 degrees, overnight lows between 6 and 12 degrees. Checking your highways around the Northwest now. On Highway 16, there's construction in Prince Rupert with a detour in effect, as well as bridge maintenance, line painting, utility work, and mowing going on. On Highway 37, watch for bridge construction and maintenance, as well as frost heaves and crack sealing. On Highway 37A, there's paving operations, road sweeping, as well as a section with falling rocks. On the Niska Highway, there's line painting going on. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, tariff impacts continue. An infectious disease professor says it was only a matter of time before Alberta surpassed the number of measles cases in the U.S. Another 30 cases diagnosed over the weekend pushed Alberta's total to more than 1,300 cases since March. The University of Calgary's Dr. Craig Jenny says Alberta's low vaccination rate meant it was pretty clear measles cases would continue growing. But the U.S. has seen more hospitalizations as well as 3 deaths in measles patients, including 2 children. It's been over 4 months since Donald Trump first imposed tariffs on all Canadian goods, then steel and aluminum, autos, and soon it could include copper and even tariffs across the board. Across the country, the impacts have been dramatic. Shipping has cratered, hundreds have been laid off, and there are fears of a global recession. But as CTV's Colton Prail reports, for many Canadians, the impacts haven't been as obvious.
It's slow going at the Canada-US border. Commercial truck traffic has cratered since Donald Trump's tariffs. U.S. officials cite roughly 10% fewer crossings in April and May compared to last year.
We're down about 6% in the volume of exports to the U.S. and that is a big hit to, essentially what comprises 40% of our economies.
So far, economists say the biggest impacts have been sector specific. The Canadian Steel Producers Association points to over 1,000 job losses since March, while exports of vehicles and parts dropped 17% in April. Now, Canadian manufacturers are scrambling to reorient business away from the United States.
It's tough, and I don't know if people realize how tricky it is. Or, we spend every day a percentage of our day is spent dealing with tariffs.
But for most Canadians, it's the grocery store where the tariff impact is apparent and driving costs up. Coffee, tea, fruits, and vegetables are all impacted, and experts say it's hitting rural and northern communities hardest.
The cost of transportation and distribution to those areas is already higher. Tariffs just compounds that affordability issue for those communities.
But tariffs have a hidden cost: uncertainty for businesses and consumers. Economists say it's driving down spending and keeping unemployment numbers high, especially for young people.
Students are facing the worst summer job market that they've faced since 2009.
And as the U.S. trade war dominates the conversation, Chinese tariffs imposed this spring are wreaking havoc on Canadian seafood producers and grain growers.
About $400 million in exports, almost all of it wild seafood, but prices have fallen by between 25 and 50%.
And economists say Trump's global trade war is also indirectly hurting the Canadian economy, driving down commodity prices and impacting revenues in Canada's mining and energy sectors.
Extreme drought in Saskatchewan has resulted in effects on the crops. Here's CTV's Allison Bamford.
Dallas Leduc set out to plant a good crop this spring, like he hopes to do every year. But his Durham wheat is far from that.
It received almost no rain between April, May, and June.
Crop insurance deemed it a total loss last month, along with 1,600 other acres.
These ones were already dead. Never in my history, never in my dad or my grandfather's farming history have we had to write off a crop this early.
The area is under a state of emergency due to extreme drought. Recent data from the Canadian Drought Monitor shows southwest Saskatchewan received less than a quarter of its normal rainfall in June. In 2021, Durham prices shot up following widespread drought across the province, but commodity prices this year aren't likely to see the same jump.
Prices are more affected by international events and the crops throughout the world. A localized drought in any one country isn't going to have as much of an impact.
What might change is next year's crop rotation. Wheat, lentil, and peas are more drought tolerant than barley and canola.
They'll be looking at something that has a potential for somewhat of a return with lower input costs.
As for this year, what little hope that's left hangs in the clouds. Rain can't save a lot of the crops, but it could help the ones seeded later in the season.
The later crop still has a chance, not a big chance, but it has a chance of actually being a profitable crop.
Farmers won't turn a profit from crop insurance, so when it comes to salvageable fields like this one, Leduc plans to squeeze out as many peas as he can when it comes time to harvest. Allison Bamford, CTV News, near Glentworth, Saskatchewan.
Turning to the markets now, Canada's main stock index closed at a record high on strength in industrials and technology, while U.S. markets also rose. The Canadian dollar fell under 1/10 cent. The price of gold dropped $4.90. Oil fell $1.47. Natural gas rose 13 cents. Aluminum was down $17.50. In Toronto, the TSX was up almost 176 points. The Venture Index rose by 3. In New York, the Dow Jones gained 88 points and the Nasdaq was up by 55. Still ahead, the youth job market takes a hit. The job market has taken a hit that's affecting young people trying to enter the workforce. CTV's Camille Carmali reports.
Here at one of Canada's biggest malls, it's a hunt.
Just resume after resume.
For teens.
I applied to like 150 jobs and I didn't get anything.
Chasing down jobs.
It's honestly almost impossible to get a job anywhere now.
Antonio De Silva has been searching for months, now knowing all the summer roles might already be filled up.
The businesses as well, not opening up enough or just creating enough job opportunities for the new generation incoming.
According to the latest jobs report, unemployment for students who want to work summer jobs has climbed this year to more than 17%. Not including the first year of the pandemic, that's a number not seen since 2009 when Canada was in a recession.
This has been a brutal summer for students to look for a job. The openings are just not there.
The trade war with the U.S. getting the blame for the downturn, with many companies hit hard by U.S. tariffs on Canadian imports.
In the last few months, companies have had no idea where the economy is going. The last thing they're going to want to do is take on a few extra heads for the summer.
The border city Windsor, for example, topped all cities in Canada with an 11.2 overall unemployment rate. In second was Peterborough at a 10% jobless rate.
At this point, we are very much, the canary in the coal mine on the trade dispute with the U.S.
All of it leaving some economists to believe that another recession may be on its way. Companies so far appear to be playing it safe when hiring, not knowing what curveball the U.S. will throw next.
There's been some caution that employers have undertaken just because the situation could really go in multiple directions.
And economists add the silver lining continues to be that Canada is not in a recession just yet, despite facing months of tariff threats. And this June, the economy actually added more than 80,000 jobs, with companies still investing, showing Canada's resilience through all of this. Kamel Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
The weight loss drug that's become hugely popular may soon become even easier to access. However, as CTV's Camille Karamali reports, this raises some concerns as well.
It's the weight loss drug that swept Hollywood. Ozempic and its sister drugs have more than 1 million users in Canada, according to Ozempic's sole manufacturer. The biggest barrier for many has been cost.
I believe it costs somewhere about $400 a month.
But now it's set to become more affordable and even more accessible by next year.
There's a certain time period in which the patent then expires, and other pharmaceutical companies can make like drugs.
Semaglutide, known under the brand names Ozempic and Wegovy, made and sold exclusively by global pharma giant Novo Nordisk. But the Canadian patent for those drugs is set to expire in January, opening semaglutide to other companies who can sell generic versions.
Cost will be down, and there will be more of the drug.
Multiple companies have so far applied to Health Canada for approval to make a generic semaglutide drug, including Hims and Hers. The American telehealth company says it'll offer Canadians access to lower-cost treatment options through its digital platform. But it's also producing concern. Fewer barriers could mean more people abusing the drug.
I think my real worry is that if you start getting into a situation where online clinics are handing out these prescriptions willy-nilly to anybody who pays their, $50 processing fee.
2 years ago, a Canadian law firm launched a proposed class action lawsuit, alleging the drug's manufacturer didn't warn about its severe side effects, including serious gastrointestinal issues like stomach paralysis.
We've received thousands of contacts of different users of Ozempic experiencing these types of adverse events.
Patricia Miller, part of that class action, no longer on the drug, but she says she's still facing the side effects.
I can't eat, I can only have liquid foods.
And Ozempic's manufacturer, Novo Nordisk, tells CTV News it stands behind the safety and efficacy of all of its medicines. Kamel Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
That's our news for now. Thanks for watching.